that he could comment on it.
Your lawyer has called you to testify as a witness in this case, and I just want to advise you what your rights are. You are allowed to testify if you wish under the Constitution, and no one can keep you from testifying, even your own lawyer, if that's what you want to do. If you do decide to testify, then the district attorney will be allowed to cross-examine you about anything that is relevant to this case. And that, are there any claimed prior?
He's not going to limit the scope of cross.
90608.
What we've had testimony regarding the things he said about not shooting anyone.
No. I'm talking about prior instance of dishonesty under 90608.
No.
Okay. So that's not an issue. The district attorney will also be allowed to ask you if you've got any criminal history or juvenile adjudications. Are there any of that?
Not aware of it.
Okay. And you could be asked about any other crimes, wrongs, or prior events that I think I've ruled on everything that's been presented to me.
You have left the door open on some things, Your Honor.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about it, and nothing, I've not heard anything in the case that would suggest to me that I would change any of those rulings. Unless there's something else on that, I don't need to cover that in terms of a possible inquiry. He will be able to ask you anything which is relevant to this case, germane, pertinent to this case.
Which is
and
everything.
You will have to answer those questions, even though it may ensnare you in some other criminal prosecution. You understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any question about that at all?
No, Your Honor.
You also have a right not to testify if you don't wish to do so. And if you decide that you do not wish to testify,
Too late for that now.
then no comment can be made on your silence by the district attorney. And I will not comment on your silence unless I am asked by your attorney to do so. And the only comment that I would make on it, if I were asked to do so, would be to instruct the jury that the defendant in a criminal case has the absolute constitutional right not to testify.
He's telling you
and
not
that
to.
your silence should not be considered by the jury in any manner in deliberation or in reaching their verdict. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
So that'll be a choice that I would ask Mr. Sharofsky or Mr. Richards at a later point as to what you wanted to do if you decided not to testify, but that won't be an issue if you decide that you do want to testify, okay?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any question about this at all?
No, Your Honor.
Have you had enough time to discuss this matter with your lawyers?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you had enough time to think about what you're doing?
Yes, Your Honor.
You think what you're doing
Are
is
you
best in
sure?
those circumstances?
Yes, Your Honor.
Has anybody threatened you or pressured you or forced you in any way with respect to this decision?
No, Your Honor.
Has anybody promised you anything in exchange for this?
No, Your Honor.
Is your mind clear today?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you feeling all right?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you
Is
had
this normal? Is this standard questioning by the judge?
any drugs or
Yes.
controlled
I think so.
substances of any kind within the last 24 hours?
No, Your
Because
Honor.
he has to, I mean, if he's
Hey,
giving up
they
his
should
Fifth
not
Amendment
accept
rights,
it,
he has to be absolutely sure.
Consistent with advice of counsel.
Okay.
Oh my.
Any
I'm not
questions?
aware of any reason.
Okay. All right then. Anything else?
May I just have a moment to run back to my office real quick? I'll be back in 2 minutes.
Sure.
Thank you.
Let me just go get my giant folder of questions that I didn't think I'd ever get to ask this kid, is what Binger just said.
Oh my God.
Binger's going to go relieve some nervous tension. He can't believe he's just gotten this gift.
So yesterday I suggested that I asked the question, is the scope on cross-examination in a criminal case different from in a civil case? And we ended up talking about the Fifth Amendment a little bit. An experienced friend on Twitter sent me the following DM last night. The limit on cross being limited to the scope of direct does not apply in criminal cases to the degree that it applies in civil cases. That's because the Fifth Amendment, because of the Fifth Amendment, and that the prosecution cannot put the defendant on the stand. So two things can happen. The judge can simply allow the prosecution to expand the scope of cross, or because he's waived his Fifth Amendment rights, the prosecution can call him in rebuttal as their own witness, have him declared hostile, and go to town. So I don't know how that is even remotely consistent with the beginning of this statement and what I thought, which was that there is some limitation. It sounds almost as if there's virtually no limitation, and something that the judge said just now sounded a lot like that.
Yeah. It's why you don't do it.
People in the chat are saying, don't count the kid out. He's smart. It's not a question of that. It's just that there's no real benefit to be gained from this, and arguably only exposure and
Right.
the loss. What's he going to say that the witnesses haven't already said?
Yeah, that's the real thing. I'll tell you what he's going to say that the witness, or what he could say that the witnesses haven't already said. Something that would compromise his ability to not say something else. That's the risk, is that if he gets up on the stand and says anything regarding his character, if he says he's a peaceful person, if he says that he doesn't engage in violence and that he's just a good boy, then they get to bring up the fact that he got into a fight and there's videos where he's punching a woman in the face. They get to bring up the fact that he sat in a CVS truck wishing that he had his gun with him so he could shoot people who he believed were stealing things out of that CVS. He could open the door to prejudicial prior acts that are irrelevant to this. If he says, I'm not a member of any organizations, maybe they can attack his later association with the Proud Boys, even though it would normally be irrelevant to this case and has been excluded from being mentioned at the time. This is just a bowl of risk with basically no reward, because I think, Viva, you just said they've already made their case. There's nothing you need.
Nick, he answers one question factually incorrectly, and then they get. For
He's
whatever
talking to you,
reason,
Viva.
he answers one question incorrectly. I just got scolded by the judge. One question incorrectly, and they'll get to contradict him, admit documents or evidence which have not yet been seen on the basis that I didn't know he was going to lie, and then turn him into the liar on the stand, even if it's just an honest mistake or doesn't remember. Like some of the other witnesses don't remember very specific details. Anyone else notice a change in the judge's demeanor right now, or am I projecting? Judge is leaning back now. In my opinion, I do not believe that the judge believes what's going on.
You may be seated.
Can I ask you to stand, please, and raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this matter be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
You may be seated.
Could you please state your name, spelling your last name for the record?
Kyle Rittenhouse, Rittenhouse,
Kyle, where do you reside?
Walworth County,
How old are you?
18.
On August 25th of 2020, did you come to downtown Kenosha to look for trouble?
No.
Would you have shot Joseph Rosenbaum if he hadn't chased you trying to take your firearm?
Objection, leading.
It's not spent leading.
Would you
Would you
I'll
is
get to it.
leading.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you a high school?
Well, it's speculation.
Yes.
What high school?
Penn Foster Online High School.
Are you currently enrolled in any further studies?
I'm a college student studying nursing at Arizona State University.
Online.
Who do you currently live with?
My mom and
I'm going to say this. This is the wrong thing
Direct
to
your
do.
attention
I'm 100%
to
against this. This is
25th.
ridiculous having him on the
Agreed.
stand. 100% ridiculous.
Antioch, Illinois.
Do you remember the address?
286 Anita Terrace, apartment 104, Antioch, Illinois.
Who did you live with there?
My mother and two sisters.
They made him fully
Your
dox
father's
himself?
Michael Rittenhouse.
No, that's his former
Back
address.
on August
Oh.
25th of 2020, where did he reside?
He lived in Kenosha, in the city
Showing
of
his ties to Kenosha.
in the apartments behind the Pick and Save on 50th. On 50.
Do you have any other family that's from Kenosha?
Yes.
What?
My grandmother, my aunt, my uncle, and cousins all live in the city of Kenosha.
Okay. There's been testimony in this trial about the firearm in question, which has been marked. States 28. You've seen that gun?
Yes.
Before August 25th of 2020, had that gun ever left the state of Wisconsin?
No.
Now, before this event happened on August 25th of 2020, did you have any hobbies?
Yes.
Tell the jury what you like to do.
I was a swimmer. I enjoyed working. I was a lifeguard. hanging out with friends, going to the beach, just normal teenage stuff.
Were you a member of any groups,
Uh-oh.
organized groups?
Organized
Yes.
group.
What?
I was a police explorer for Grays Lake Police Department, and I was a firefighter EMT cadet for Antioch Fire Department.
Did you have any training in
So far, everything he's
Like
testified to, his
like
mom
that?
can testify
Yes.
to.
what?
Yep.
I was a certified lifeguard. I am a certified lifeguard and swim instructor. I am certified in Stop the Bleed, CPR, AED, automatic external defibrillator, and basic life support.
Okay. On August 25th of 2020, where were you employed?
I was furloughed at the YMCA in Lindenhurst, Illinois, because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I was working at the Recplex in Pleasant Prairie.
Okay. Recplex here in Kenosha County.
Yes.
Now, on the night of the 24th, did you come to downtown Kenosha?
Not downtown, but I came to Kenosha for work.
Okay. And after your shift at work completed, where did you go?
I went to Dominick Black's stepfather's house. I believe his name is Scott Dickhart. It's been a while since I've seen him.
Okay. And
Careful,
who was
Nick.
Dominick Black in relationship to you?
Him and Dominick Black and my sister Mackenzie Rittenhouse used to date.
Okay. And on the night of the 24th, were you aware of anything going on in Kenosha?
I knew there was protests, demonstrations, and riots going on in the later evening.
And how were you aware of that?
I saw videos on social media, on Facebook live streams, TikTok of. I saw the Car Source lot being burned down. The Car Source 1, what we've been referring to. I saw a police officer get assaulted. He had a brick thrown at his head. And I saw the mattress store owner get knocked out, and I believe his jaw was broken and had to be wired shut or something.
And you saw all of that on the 24th.
Yes.
Did you go to downtown Kenosha at that time and try and do anything about that?
No, I did not.
Directing your attention to the late morning of August 25th, 2020, did you have occasion to go downtown?
I did go to downtown in the morning of August 25th.
Who did you go there with?
I went there with Dominick Black, my sister Mackenzie Rittenhouse, and Ray Dickhart.
And describe what you did.
We walked around for a little bit, and then I believe at around 11:30 noon, we ended up at Ruther Central High School, where we ended up cleaning graffiti for about, I want to say, an hour and a half to 2 hours.
This is
That's
the
they're
exact
trying
narrative.
to.
This is the narrative the prosecution wants to come
Show
up
you
with.
what's been
Put up
previously marked
knowing
as
with a gun.
131. You recognize that?
I do.
Could you describe what you see in that photo?
Towards the left in the olive green shirt, that's me, and then to my left, that's Ray Dickhart, and to my right, that's my sister Mackenzie Rittenhouse. And
What are you doing there?
we're cleaning graffiti off of Ruther Central High School.
And were you getting paid to do this?
No, I was not.
And you see what the graffiti says?
Yes.
And you knew what it said as you were cleaning it off?
Yes.
I won't repeat it. After you were done doing that, what did you do?
We were walking, and we went to the Car Source lot, the first location, and we were looking at the destruction of the burnt cars, and we saw the owner, Sam and Sal. I believe that's what they told us their names were.
And you saw, when we say Car Source, the one that you met Sam and Sal at is what we've been referring to as Car Source number 1?
Yes.
And that's the one that they just played a video of all the burnt out cars?
Yes.
Did you have any discussions with Sam and Sal?
Briefly, I offered my condolences, and I said, if there's anything I can do, please reach out to me. He gave me his number. I gave him my number. And
You were with Dominick Black at that time?
I was.
And your sister?
Yes.
And what did you do after that?
After that, we walked back to, I believe, we parked our car by, you see the parking lot?
Do you have the pointer up there?
Yes. We parked our car right in this parking lot in that corner, somewhere over there.
I can't see that far, I'm sorry. You're referring to the parking lot, which is at the corner 59th and Sheridan. It would be the southeast corner, correct?
Correct.
And you're pointing the dot. You parked closer to 8th Street, correct?
Yes.
Okay, you can put the pointer down. And whose car did you get there in?
Dominick Black's.
And when you left, where did you go?
Once we left that parking lot, we went to Dominick Black's stepfather's house again, and we hung out there for a little bit.
Okay. And do you know who Nick Smith is?
I do.
And did you have any contact with Nick Smith that afternoon?
Later in the evening, around 3:30, 4 o'clock, Nick Smith called me and Dominick.
And when he called you, what was the nature of the call?
At first, Nick Smith wanted us to drive him to Chicago by O'Hare Airport, the suburbs of Chicago, because he wanted to buy a bulletproof vest. And Dominick said, okay, we'll drive him. And then he said, okay, I need you to pick me up at like 3:30, 4 o'clock.
Okay. Did you go and pick him up eventually?
Yes, we actually, before we picked him up, we went to Jelensky's.
Okay. What did you do at Jelensky's?
We bought, Dominick wanted me to buy 2 rifle slings.
And did you?
I did.
One was for what?
One was for my rifle, and the other one was for Dominick's rifle.
That contradicts Dominick's testimony.
Why did you care about your rifles that evening?
The reason for the slings were just so it's like a retainer. So if I'm helping somebody with first aid, I can just like dangle my rifle behind me, and I don't have to worry about somebody just randomly going and picking it up off the ground, just as like an extra measure, so it won't be taken from the ground.
And what time did you go to Jelensky's?
I want to say about 2:30, but I don't know exactly for sure.
Okay. When did you first have contact with Nick Smith?
3:30, 3:15.
Okay.
3:15.
And was there any discussion regarding car source at that time?
Yes.
What?
Nick Smith, once we picked him up, he wanted to go to a bank to withdraw money. The bank was closed. And then he was like, hey, would you guys like to come with me and help watch over the car source, make sure there's no fires or anything? And Dominick said, yes, I agreed. I said, okay. And then I said, here, Nick, I don't really need my bulletproof vest. I'm going to be helping people with first aid. So I gave him my bulletproof vest.
And by you giving him your bulletproof vest, did that stop the need to go to someplace by O'Hare Airport?
Yes.
Okay. And why does a 17-year-old kid have a bulletproof vest?
It was issued to me by the Grays Lake Police Department.
You didn't purchase it?
No, I did not.
Whoa.
After you
That's
gave
interesting.
him your bulletproof vest, where did you go?
We went back to Nick Smith's house where we parked Dominick Black's car.
And then what did you do?
We walked from Mr. Smith's house. Once we parked at Nick Smith's house, we walked from Nick Smith's house to the car source 1, cutting through the Ruther Central backside parking lot because Nick Smith lives on the same street.
You don't have to say where Nick
Okay.
He lives within walking distance from here?
Yes.
And so you go to car source 1,
Yes.
and that's the burnt out one?
No, car source 2, my bad, across the street.
Okay. And at car source 2, that's where you spent most of the evening?
Yes.
Okay. When you first got to car source 2, the one at 59th and Sheridan, what happened?
The owners were there, Sam, Sal, and his father, and I believe, I think it was his uncle there also. He was driving a van of some sort.
And what was the discussion?
Sam and Sal thanked us for coming out to help. And then Sal said, hey, why don't you guys hop in my car? If I remember correctly, it was either a white or black BMW or Mercedes. I don't recall exactly.
And why did he want you to get in his car?
He was gonna drive us down to car source lot number 3.
Okay. And did you agree to get in his car?
I did.
And who went to car source number 3?
Me, Dominick Black, and Nick Smith.
And who was driving?
Sal.
And when you got there, what happened?
We got out and we hung around for a couple minutes, and then some people showed up. I now know who they are, but at the time I didn't.
Real quick, I want to say it's possible that Kyle insisted on testifying. Lots of criminal defendants want to tell their story, and you can't stop them.
So it's been marked as exhibit.
That's also possible.
30. Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yeah, but a
I
good
do.
attorney would make sure their client doesn't testify. You let them know, right? It's ridiculous. I understand he might be adamant, but if you're a good attorney, you let them know.
Go up there, please, and point out. Can you point out the people who you knew before that picture was taken and name them?
Yes.
If Kyle insisted, I hope Richard's got it in writing because
Yes.
it's a liability.
Well, but he can't show
He
it to
would have
anybody
to.
anyway. But he could, yeah, he would have to, but he couldn't show it to anybody.
Well, he
Unless
could on
there's
a malpractice.
claim.
That's-
Yeah.
Yeah,
what I'm
a
getting at.
malpractice, yeah. But I'm talking about like,
This
you
is
know.
Joanne Huber. This is Justin Hamilton. This is Dustin Colette. This is Nicholas Smith. I don't recall his name.
Real quick, no, he
This
did
is
not
me,
say that he
and
was
this is
doing
Dominick
it on
Black.
advice of counsel. He said the recitation of
We've
Kyle's
heard
rights was
testimony.
consistent with
Yeah.
advice of counsel.
We've heard testimony about you, Nick, and Dominic. You knew those individuals before August 25th of 2020?
I knew Nicholas Smith and Dominick Black.
Okay. You did not know the owner of Car Source previously?
I did not.
Was he being nice to you guys? Was he happy you were there? Was he mad at you for being there? Describe it.
He was happy we were there.
Okay. And you heard their testimony, the two owners. I believe that was Friday afternoon.
I did.
And did they give you permission to be there?
They did.
Objection leading.
And the other individuals
Let him
in this
talk
photograph, some of
on
whom
this
have
one.
testified in this trial, 10 minutes before this photograph was taken, did you know any of them?
I did not.
Had you ever spoken to any of them?
No.
And when you were there, what was the idea? Was there a plan? What was going to happen?
Yes, the plan was to. I went down there to provide first aid. I brought my orange first aid kit, the fanny pack, and I also brought my Pelican box, which was filled with first aid stuff by my feet to provide first aid.
The orange box by your feet you referred to as a Pelican box?
Yes.
Did you have that before the 25th?
Yes.
Was it stocked
Yes.
with things that you had bought and brought?
Yes.
And do you go with that every day, or is that because of the situation?
It was in the trunk of my car.
Okay. And the fanny pack, what's the situation with that?
It was my work bag. I brought it to work with me, and I would put it under my lifeguard booth.
Okay. And that had first aid supplies?
Yes.
Now, after the meeting here at 63rd and Sheridan Road, what's been referred to as Car Source 3, what happened?
After the photograph, I believe, I don't recall exactly, but there was about 2 or 3 vans that pulled up, like big vans with people inside of them.
Okay. And what was their role in this evening?
Well, they showed up and they wanted to protect the business, and I didn't really have a say in what everybody was doing. I was just there doing my first aid stuff. And then Ryan Ball said, hey, why don't you guys stay here? And we'll go down to the car source number 2.
Okay. And so the people, a group of people was going to stay at Car Source 3, and the people depicted in this photograph were going to go where?
Car source 2.
And is that what happened?
Yes.
And so at that point, then Sam and Sal had coverage, for lack of a better word, at both of their businesses to protect the property, correct?
Yes.
So you get down to Car Source 2. Did all of these people go there?
Yes. Besides Sal, the owner, he did not.
Okay. During the night, was Sam and Sal there?
They were not.
They left you guys there.
Yes. I believe Nick Smith was in contact with them throughout the night. I'm not certain, but I believe they were.
And you get down there, were you able to get in and out of the business?
Yes.
How?
Sal, the owner, actually gave Nick Smith a set of keys.
Did you personally see that?
I did.
Did he give you any other direction regarding any equipment or anything like that?
He let us know where, like, the power washers and the fire. I think there was a single fire extinguisher in the building and some hoses, the hose hookups, just in case there was any fires we needed to put out at the lot.
Anything else about roof?
He
He's certainly well
showed,
prepared.
I believe it was Dominick Black and Nick Smith, the two ladders that were there to get up on the roof.
Okay. And did you guys use those ladders?
I didn't personally, but the people that were on the roof did.
Okay. And you saw them use those ladders?
I didn't see them, but that's how they got up there.
He comes across very credible, though. I'm not gonna.
Yes.
Where were you
Credible
predominantly at Carson?
and clean
I
cut
was in
and
front
American
of
and
the too.
earnest.
Yeah, it's like apple pie. Yeah, I was out there. He's out there scribbling off thing from the high school. So
Now, during the night at Car Source 2, did you stay there the whole time?
No, not
Okay.
the whole time.
When you would leave Car Source 2, what
notice how he's not looking at the jury.
When-
He's looking at the person.
when I
asking
left, I was-
questions, you know.
With Ryan Balch, and we would go out and ask if anybody needed any first aid assistance, and we would see if there were any fires, and we would put them out.
Okay. Did you personally put out any fires?
I did.
Where?
I put one out at the church.
Use a pointer.
So right here was where there was the demolishing. They were breaking some stuff down. But right here, I believe there was another building with an alleyway. It was either right here or right here. I don't remember fully. But there was a fire down the alleyway where they were trying to set the building and church on fire, and me and Mr. Balch, and I believe somebody else was with us. We went to go put that fire out.
Did you put it out?
We did.
Then what did you do?
Around that time, we saw Ruther Central High School on fire, the front doors, and we were walking north down Sheridan Road to go put the fire out. And then somebody else put the fire out before we got to Ruther
And when
Central
you
High
say the
School.
front, is that right here on Civic Park?
No, sorry, that's my mistake. You're walking north on Sheridan. It's the side of the building on Sheridan Road towards the left when you're walking north.
In the general area where you had tried to help remove graffiti earlier?
Yes, in that photo to the right.
Okay. And during the evening, was there any friction between your group and protesters / rioters?
No. The only type of stuff that happened was the person that attacked me first threatened to kill me twice.
Okay. And the person who threatened to kill you, we now know is Mr. Rosenbaum, correct?
Yes.
Before August 25th of 2020, had you ever seen him before?
I did not.
Had you ever done anything to upset him?
No.
Now, you said he threatened to kill you twice.
Yes.
Describe the first time.
The first time was me and Ryan Balch were a little bit north, towards the north corner of 59th and Sheridan, and Mr. Rosenbaum was walking with a steel chain, and he had a blue mask around his face, and he was just mad about something. Me and Mr. Balch were asking people if they needed medical help, and then he screamed, sorry for my language, he screamed, "If I catch any of you fuckers alone, I'm going to fucking kill you."
And that was directed at you and Mr. Balch?
It was directed at both of us, what I believe.
And there was a second occasion where he threatened you?
Yes. The second time was outside of the car source. And I don't know if it was directed towards me, but I heard it. He said I believe it was Joanne Fiedler, Dustin, Colette, and Another guy, he was screaming. He said, "I'm going to cut your fucking hearts out and kill." I'm not going to repeat the second word, but kill you and words.
That's new.
Now, did you ever see
No, it's not new.
Rosenbaum doing anything?
We heard that before.
property damage?
I
Well,
did.
the N-word statement, but cut your heart
I-
out.
Oh, the heart's
that
out,
does
yeah.
feel new.
I now know to be Joshua Zeminski. I saw him tip that trailer over and the porta potty. I saw him do both. And I believe he tried to start the porta potty on fire. I don't know. I don't think he succeeded. But then I saw him with Mr. Zeminski. He was either helping start it or he was like throwing stuff on it. I don't know which one he was doing.
Where did you originally see that trailer?
That trailer?
Oh, Grambo
was in
said the heart
St.
outline
James-
too.
In the St. James Church parking lot. Sort of.
Oh, she said it also?
Over here in like the
According
backish
to chat.
corner. What I remember.
And did you see how it got from there to where it was put on fire?
It was pulled.
By who?
It was several people that pulled it into the street, but I can't tell you definitely who pulled it into the street.
And you went down there and saw them starting a fire?
I didn't go down there. I was at the corner of the car source lot.
Okay. And you referred to Mr. Zeminski. Before August 25th of 2020, had you ever met Mr. Zeminski?
I have not.
Did you ever meet him since?
I have not.
Now, when you first saw Mr. Rosenbaum, was his top half of his body clothed or unclothed?
He was clothed with a blue mask the first time I saw him. Yeah, blue mask.
And what color was his shirt, if you remember?
A dark red-ish color.
Now, did you provide medical help to anyone?
I did.
Describe a couple of those occasions.
The first time I provided medical help to someone was this lady. I think she sprained her ankle or twisted it. I don't know exactly. I'm not an expert on x-rays, or I wouldn't know. She hurt her ankle and she was being carried by two gentlemen. And I said, hey, before that I was just pepper sprayed, but I was like, hey, do you need help? And she said yes. And I said, okay, let's go into the car source where I was helping people. And I wrapped her ankle and then she went on her way. And I let her know there was a hospital. If you go, I want to say southbound Sheridan, across the street from car source 3, I let her know that the hospital was over there and she should go get it looked at.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yes.
What?
Somebody threw a chemical bomb, actually right after I heard I'm going to cut your hearts out from Mr. Rosenbaum. I don't know who threw it, but somebody threw a chemical bomb, and Ryan Balch had some effects of it. So I helped Mr. Balch with being able to breathe, and I helped flush his eyes out and had him drink some water.
Okay. You, in the answer to the question just before, you said something about being pepper sprayed.
I did.
And where did that happen?
That happened at the car source. I believe it's the first time a big crowd of people were over there. I was pepper sprayed by somebody that was in the crowd. I don't know why, but I was pepper sprayed.
Did you do anything in retaliation?
I did not.
Now, directing your attention to later in the evening, did there come an occasion where you had contact with Mr. McGinnis?
There was.
And before this evening, August 25th, 2020, did you ever met or spoke to Mr. McGinnis?
I have not.
And you and Mr. McGinnis and Mr. Balch go someplace?
Yes.
And describe that.
I get done with my interview with Mr. McGinnis and I ask him, I asked Mr. McGinn. No, I don't ask him. I said, if you want to come with us, that's fine, to document and film me and Ryan helping people. And he said, yeah, sure. And he followed behind us.
And in that tape for Mr. McGinnis, there's talk about you being an EMT, correct?
Yes,
Are you an EMT?
I am not.
You have first aid and other training.
I do.
And you go to south on Sheridan Road.
Correct.
You cross 60th and Sheridan Road.
I believe we stay just to the right, going south on Sheridan Road.
And eventually you cross Sheridan Road.
Eventually.
And were the Bearcats there yet?
No. Yes, they were.
Okay. Had they set up a line to stop people that you were aware of?
Not that I was aware of. I just know they were parked right there and people were throwing rocks at them.
Did anybody tell you not to cross that line? You wouldn't be able to go back?
Not until later in the evening.
Okay. You cross that line, where do you go?
We continue straight in the southerly direction down Sheridan Road.
Okay. Were you going any place in particular?
No, we were just going to see if anybody needed medical help, and I looked at a guy's shoulder on the way there.
Okay. And you finished with the guy's shoulder, and you continue on, and what happens?
I continue walking in a southerly direction down Sheridan Road, and then as I'm walking, I believe you guys have been referring to him as Yellow Pants. He said he said something to me. I believe it was, you were the one that pointed your rifle at me with the laser pointed at me. I believe that's what I heard. And I didn't. That's the first time I saw him that night. So I was confused. So I said I did. And then I continued to walk away.
And was the did an admission that you did it, or more of a statement with a question?
It was
Very
a
leading
sarcastic part.
That would be a leading
Did you
question,
engage
yeah.
with them any further?
No.
And
Binger just wants to
from
let him
there,
talk,
where do
though.
you go?
There I continue walking in a
Binger is
southerly
feverishly
direction,
taking notes, is what Binger's doing.
merging towards the middle of Sheridan Road.
Okay, at that point, to become aware of anything?
In about as I'm walking, I start to look because I realize Mr. Balch is not with me anymore.
Okay, did you continue on your way down Sheridan Road without Mr. Balch?
No, I actually went to go look for Mr. Balch in the Ultimate gas station parking lot.
Okay, when you went to the Ultimate gas station parking lot, describe what was going on there.
There were a lot of people there. I don't really know what was going on. I was just focused on trying to find Mr. Balch. As I was looking for him, couldn't find him. I said, okay, no problem. I'll just go back to the car source number 2.
Okay, and describe what happened as you did that.
As I did that, I received a phone call from Dominick Black.
Okay, let me back up. Were you able to get back to car source number 2?
No, I did not.
Describe that.
As I was trying to get back, the police stopped me. Well, didn't stop me. They told me, I believe they said something along the lines of to not go down there. And I was telling them, hey, I need to go down there. That's where I'm at, that business. I don't remember exactly how that conversation went, but they wouldn't let me go back to car source lot number 2.
So you weren't able to get back to car source 2?
I was not.
Did you disobey the police's order?
No.
And you're alone, you're stuck on the other side of the police line from the car source 2. Where do you go?
I go to where there's other people at the gas station protecting the gas station, and I go there because I believe that's the safest place to go because there's other people there. And
At that point, were you able to find Mr. Balch?
I was not.
While you're at the Ultimate gas station, I think we've been calling it?
Correct.
Point it out, just there's no.
So he's not looking for trouble. He's looking for safety. He's looking to help people.
Golf gas station.
That's a good point.
And
State of mind is
when
the
you were
only
there,
thing that
what's
makes
the
any sense, but I
next
still
significant
disagree.
thing that happened?
Dominick Black calls me and he says, Kyle, I need you to get down to the car source lot number 3. The cars are being bashed in. They're setting all the cars on fire. I need you to go and put the fires out.
Okay. And did you do anything as a result of that phone call?
I did.
What?
At the Ultimate gas station, I asked, I don't know who he is, but I asked an individual if he could come with me and if I could have a fire extinguisher to put out the fires.
Were both of those requests satisfied?
One of them were.
What?
I was given a fire extinguisher, but he said he can't come with me, and he said he believes there's already people down there helping protect the business.
Okay. And what did you do then?
I start running towards the car source lot number 3 to put out the fires, pausing occasionally to catch my breath and walk.
Okay. On the way to car source 3, did you have any interaction with Mr. Rosenbaum?
I did not.
Did you speak to Mr. Rosenbaum?
No.
Did you notice Mr. Rosenbaum doing anything as you went down to car source 3?
I didn't notice Mr. Rosenbaum until he came out from behind the car and ambushed me.
Okay, I'll get to that. Did you run the whole way?
No, I didn't.
Okay. You had your gun, correct?
Yes.
And you had a fire extinguisher?
Yes.
And you had your medic?
My medical bag, yes.
And were you asking people about medic at that point?
I was asking people if they needed medical help as I was getting down there.
Did you receive any responses?
No, I didn't.
Describe your approach to car source number 3.
As I'm walking down Sheridan Road, I hear somebody scream, "Burn in hell," and I reply with friendly, to let them know, hey, I'm just here to help. I don't want any problems. I just want to put out the fires if there are any. I continue walking, and then I notice the Duramax. I notice a flame in the back seat of the Duramax, and I step towards the Duramax, and as I'm stepping forward, I believe his name is now Joshua Zeminski. He steps towards me with a pistol in his hand, and as I'm walking towards to put out the fire, I drop the fire extinguisher and I take a step back.
Okay. When you step back from Mr. Zeminski, what's your plan?
My plan is to get out of that situation and go back north down Sheridan Road to where the car source lot number 2 was.
I bet he's going to cry when he talks about killing Rosenbaum.
Back? Were you able to go in a northerly direction?
I believe this kid. I believe this kid 100%.
Once I take that step back, I look over my shoulder, and Mr. Rosenbaum was now running from my right side, and I was cornered from in front of me with Mr. Zeminski, and there were.
Yep.
Question is, will the jury believe it, or will they think it's rehearsed?
There were
Right.
No, they're gonna believe it. But
people right there.
Take a deep breath, Kyle.
I believe this kid. I believe this fucking kid. I'm sorry. I believe him. I'm not sorry. I believe this kid.
Whatever. That's where I run.
This is a 17-year-old kid who just killed 2 people.
this is post-traumatic stress disorder, and it's not.
10 minutes.
It's a 17-year-old kid who just, this kid was 17. People think this kid is like a 40-year-old man. It's a 17-year-old kid
Right,
who's out there
right.
cleaning off graffiti from a high school.
Yeah.
Of course, he's
I-
going to be upset.
Someone in the chat said he was being hunted, and you realize he was being hunted by like a pack of wolves. One was taking one side, the other one brandished a firearm from another side. But this kid suffers from PTSD, and this is reliving it in real time.
Yeah.
I want to point something out to address the chat. Yes, Kyle is doing well. He's doing great. He's very believable, and he's coming across very real right now. The jury is certainly going to be, they're at worst, each juror is going to have a conflict inside. If they hate Kyle, they're going to be conflicted by what's going on. The problem is not now on direct.
It's cross-examination.
That is not the problem. He's going to do direct well. They've been probably rehearsing this for the past month, getting this testimony down. It's why he's crisp on the facts. He's confident. He's been doing all this. And this moment they knew was going to come. Barnes said,
Let's aim for 10 minutes, but it'll probably be a tad longer.
Barnes said for the first month while he was in jail, he's throwing up every day. We know Kyle feels guilt and remorse over this. The problem comes on cross because this is now, and when they hit cross, Binger gets to ask him every question, and all the jury needs, all the people who hate him and are conflicted right now, if they do, I'm not saying they do, we don't know, but if they're conflicted right now, it takes one question and one answer on cross to put them back and go, wait, that was a charade. They can justify it.
There's two things, by the way. Crying like that, most people with half a heart will acknowledge that it's PTSD. Others will just say it's a sign of instability, and you have an unstable kid coming with an AR-15 to protect burnt-out cars. What did he think was going to happen? And he's guilty. And I'm taking notes, like, Binger's going to ask questions about his other hobbies. He's testified to hobbies. Cross, what are his other hobbies? From an optics point of view, having the kid holding a laser on stand is not a good optics. And if you're a sassy prosecutor in cross, you can find a way to work in jabby remarks.
All right. Yeah. That's not being a sassy prosecutor is not on the table here.
No, they have to be very careful.
No, but I'm saying he's not good. His technique is not good. The question is, I think the point is, Viva, and I think we all agree, he doesn't necessarily have to be that good.
No.
He's got now a wide canvas to paint on, and
he's got one. He's already got one lie when Rittenhouse says, "I did point the laser." So were you lying then or were you lying now? It's the exact same strategy you'd use on the roommate. Were you lying then or were you lying now? And you've got one statement right there. It's not, the kid is clearly distraught. It was always going to go this way. And the question is, how is anyone going to interpret this? People with any experience might interpret it for what it is, but people with confirmation bias will read it a whole different way.
And the last point about his emotional breakdown, there are a lot of people in prison for the rest of their lives who cried on the stand and genuinely meant it, that they felt regret over killing someone. It happens in courtrooms basically every
people who kill
day.
their entire families crying on the stand.
Yes.
And,
So
the judge ruled, and I'm not sure that Kyle fully appreciated it, that we're going to allow an unlimited cross. This whole idea of the scope of direct is a concept that is completely gone.
Yeah.
The prosecution can ask any question that is relevant to that night.
No,
Not
other
matter
than
what
the
defense
few
asks.
other than the few restricted by in limine, which is currently his association with the Proud Boys, although they asked him if he was a member of any
Memberships.
organizations.
Yep.
That
so
probably
that
opens the door.
That opens the
Right.
door.
And then
I
the
think-
other
Are they not a
questions.
member of any organizations? Let's talk a little bit about this. If the prosecution has any sense at all, they will come to Cross almost as a friend. They will come to him as a friend, and they will be kind. They won't berate him like we saw yesterday.
Maybe.
And that would be my idea.
He said
at
if they
least.
had
That'd be my
sense.
idea. Come to him as a friend and make him trip up.
Yeah, and the current other
What-
thing
I
they
mean,
can't
if
ask
I'm- if
about
I'm
right
looking
now are his two prior bad acts. That's all, which is the fight and the CVS incident. They can't ask about those currently, although we still have time on direct. Sorry, Viva, I didn't mean to go over you there.
No, I was going to say two things. I mean, from a damage control perspective, if I'm saying now as defense, get him off the stand now. Is there a way they can just end this right now and say he's unable to continue? He'll still get crossed
No.
to some extent, but much
No,
more
you
limited.
still got to
He-
get crossed.
he has-
No,
Yeah.
no limit on cross. Judge said
he's
no
gotta get
limit
crossed,
on
yeah.
cross.
And now,
And he'll-
everyone in the chat should also appreciate that the defense, what people think is building the defense, is actually just building the exact narrative that the prosecution wants to build, is that this kid shows up with a gun to protect what were by and large already burnt out cars, to go protect property that has been destroyed to some extent, no plan, shows up with a gun, and then, this happens. This is the narrative that the prosecution is painting in the hopes that people are just going to say he shouldn't have been there. It was culpable from the beginning, therefore we'll find guilt. So that they're not even contradicting the prosecution's narrative.
No, I can't agree, Viva. I can't agree. I think what I heard here was that he's a guy looking for people to help. And when cops tell him to do something, he does it. When he doesn't know where to go, he goes where there is safety and people and light. He didn't say light, but that's what you have at a gas station. So, in fact, I think that was a very important point and a theme that had to have purposely been injected into the narrative along with the lawyers, which is here, at every juncture, what you don't have, what you have is he's not talking about his gun. He's talking about his first aid kit. He's talking about people. He's talking about connection, body armor. It's all defensive. So you're right, Viva. If confirmation bias is in play, none of this matters. None of this matters.
He's going to be talking.
the
He's
big
going to talk
point-
about that gun on cross.
Oh yeah, but I think the
Of
big
course.
point here, I think a lot of people just don't understand.
Oh yeah.
Is that we want to be emotional on direct, right? This is what they want us to be. They want us to be emotional. They want us to be invested. But like Nick said earlier, this is not the show, right? This is not the show. It's really on cross. And on cross, I think people have to really understand Binger is a professional prosecutor. He's done, like when I was a prosecutor, I had 70 cases holding at one time. This is something that you do as par course. This guy's a professional. So the fact that he's even taking the stand, you're taking the stand against a professional who's done this thousands of times, who knows how to break a witness on the stand. That's the reason. That's the one reasons why I say, he shouldn't be up there anyway. So
I agree.
I think is a mistake.
That was my thought, Nate. Also, is that even though we have seen that the prosecutors do not have good technique. In fact, their technique is less than average. But in this moment, this is the critical moment. This is the right down the middle of what a prosecutor does in terms of cross-examination. And as you said, he's done it a gazillion times. I guess the only question
put
is,
the gun in his hand. They're going to literally ask Kyle to take hold of the gun. Show us how you were holding it that night, Kyle. Show us how you pointed it, Kyle. Literally hold the gun for the jury so they can see you do it right now.
Yeah, well, I think in terms of the emotion here in his direct, really what's gonna matter for the jury is how consistent his emotion stays, not just in his direct, but then in his cross. Because remember with Grosskreutz, he was very smooth and he was very well rehearsed, and then he also had some like emotional moments that he was kind of spinning up. That then as soon as he was put pressure on him on cross. Under that pressure, all of that sort of shifted around. He got uncomfortable and it's like the mask kind of slipped for him. So whether or not the jury saw that is obviously another question, but that's the kind of stuff that they're going to be looking for in terms of credibility of the witness. They're going to be looking for the same thing for Kyle, and probably more for him than anyone else, than any other witness in this whole trial.
People in the chat, I mean, you guys have to appreciate if he testifies and tells the truth, the facts are on his side. You have motivated parties here who are not for right or for wrong, and it's probably for wrong, are less interested in the facts and more interested in getting a conviction. So he had the right to be there with the gun. That's not the issue right now. The narrative for the prosecution is that he should never have been there with the gun. By doing so, it was all wrong to begin with, and this is what happened. And he went there to protect burnt out property with an AR-15. That's, like it or not, that's what they're going to spin this as. And they're going to get at the fact that he knew a lot of the property had already been damaged. And so what's he going there armed with a gun for? And they've opened the door for that.
And for everybody out there who hates the phrase "my truth" or "our truth" or whatever, lawyers invented that. that came from the legal profession. We figured out that my truth can trump the truth a long time ago. And if you hate that expression and how it plays into society, that's the courtroom, man. That's what you want. The jury has two sets of truths that are competing, and their job is to pick the one that they agree with or believe the most. And that's what happens. So all of the legal justification in the world that I fully believe Kyle is 100% not guilty of all of the charges in this case. But that doesn't matter because it's what the jury thinks about the fact set that will determine their thing. And as Viva mentioned, confirmation bias can be very strong. He shouldn't have been there. He can never be justified, might be in the mind of these jurors. And that's the terrifying gamble that's going on.
And everybody's saying, he's crying, he looks authentic. There's an expression in law, if they're crying, they're lying. And typically it's under different circumstances. When someone gets caught in a lie, their first reaction is to cry to, try to create sympathy. It is obviously contextually dependent, and this is totally different. But people say crying authenticity. Other people say if you're crying, you're lying. And that's the question of how you view the exact same circumstances here.
I say if you're robot, you're nobody, Viva.
Not unstable.
That's what I say.
I might have.
Yeah, I mean, but that
you're a robot.
It's hard. It's hard to make an ugly cry look authentic though, and that was a little bit of an ugly cry there that was going on. So for me personally, I find that very authentic, but I also I find that what just happened on the stand, I find that very authentic, but I don't know if maybe I'm biased because of the previous testimony that we've seen here and the video and my opinions that I have formed up to this point. Maybe I have confirmation bias as well. That's totally a possibility. So I'm trying to like put my brain into the perspective of somebody who's doubtful of all of that right now.
The one time, I don't know if you guys remember the Michael Jackson when he was on trial with the two kids and they found him not guilty. And during that trial, I watched and I was like, oh, I like, there were moments in the trial where I was like, oh, this is so important. The jury's going to be considering that. But then when they asked the jury, like, why did you find Michael Jackson not guilty? I remember the juror came on and she said, because that woman on the stand pointed at me. And I was like, man, you better not point at me. And because you pointed at me, I'm just not going to believe you. And at that point, the juries are really a crapshoot. You don't know what, like, some jurors may look at this and say,
that is a really
hey,
nice way of describing it.
And some juries are going to look at this and say, he's totally full of BS, right? We expected him to do this. So, it's a crapshoot. And that's why you don't put your defendant on the stand when you have your case won, because I'm assuming he's not guilty. I personally believe he's not guilty, but I'm assuming he's not guilty. But I don't believe you're going to get a guilty verdict no matter how bad he does here. I think what you can do is get a hung jury, which gives you another bite at the apple. That's my biggest fear for Kyle now, is not finding him, keeping him found guilty. It's about him being found, this being a mistrial, and they get a second bite.
I wouldn't bank on the lack of a guilty verdict. The amount of people who have said things that put them in jail, the Innocence Project would like to have a word about the false confessions. The probability that he just needs to say like the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 words that in isolation are going to be damning. And then the prosecution, all they have to do is blow it up into huge font. I never liked the guy, to use the illustration from that famous video, and they're most of the way home. The idea that he's not going to be saying something damning, this is ridiculous.
Where in my wisdom did I start roboting up?
We heard you.
Okay, I'm tethering off my iPhone now, so it'll be different. No, I don't see any good coming out of this.
I don't either. But I mean, the problem with this is, to me, it seems like at best it will be neutral.
Emily,
what's
make
up,
it make
Emily?
sense. Make it
What
make sense,
are they
Emily.
doing? Am I too? Hopefully, I'm not too loud. Chat, let me know. I don't know why they chose to do this, but I was watching y'all because I was prepping for other things today because I didn't think there was a chance that this would happen. We talked about this yesterday. Why would they do this? But I don't know if you guys touched on it, but this is not the lawyer's choice. This is Kyle's choice.
Yes.
If Kyle wants to testify and his lawyers say, this is a terrible plan, Kyle can say, I don't care what you say. I need to be heard, and I'm
Yeah.
going to be heard.
And in that case, they have two choices. They either say, okay, we will support you and we will prepare you for it, or they have to withdraw. That's the rules of professional responsibility.
So
Someone in the chat had said that apparently, according to Wisconsin lawyers, it's standard practice to have the defendant testify in their own trial. I mean, I don't know who can attest to that accuracy in Wisconsin specifically.
I can't imagine the entire Wisconsin defense bar being functionally idiots. I just can't imagine that is the case, but
it's a very strange thing, but this might be his choice. So far, he rings authentic to me. He is, and Viva hit it right on the head. He's clearly hitting the PTSD of this night. He's been reliving it, watching it in this trial for 9 days now. And you heard his voice starting to crack. Witnesses who are forcing a cry don't have the same vocal cues that people who are trying to hold back a cry. And it can be very hard for the jury. I'd be interested to see if any jurors were trying to hold back tears as he was starting to cry, because it can be very emotional for those in the courtroom as well.
You could see him like visibly reliving the memory in his own mind and the feeling that he had when he was being cornered by one Zeminski, who just showed him the gun, Rosenbaum, who's now chasing him around the car. You could see him like back in the emotional moment at the time, if you're amenable to viewing him that way. If you're not, Lord knows how you're going to view it.
Well, you might view it as being manipulative, but it's hard to authentically manipulate emotion.
I don't think he was faking. I don't think any reasonable person views that as faking.
Well, if you, but the thing is that you can just go on Twitter and see a whole bunch of people who I might have considered reasonable for, who think that he's faking. Oh, this was planned. This was this. So I don't think so. I think this kid is authentic. But a jury is just such a crapshoot. It's really, you're really throwing dice right now. That's why you don't put them on.
I want to let the chat know one really important thing about the judge going through all the reading of the rights, excusing the jury, and all that. That is a standard thing when judges are confronting defendants who are making a decision that might run averse to their constitutional rights. They make sure they understand it. In fact, in all of my cases, they wouldn't excuse a jury to even ask the questions. They just would ask them directly to the person. But that's just how it kind of goes. That's not the judge saying no. That's the Constitution saying no, and the judge just informing them. And that's a very common thing. Sorry,
there was one thing that no. I was interrupting because I am ADHD and I interrupt. There's one thing that really struck me about this. I know they're going to try to paint it like Kyle's part of a militia or what have you, but he was alone. And in all the gang cases I did, I've never seen someone attacked like this be alone and not have anyone coming to their aid that was in support of them, which I think goes strongly against him having anyone there that knew him or was a part of a group with him.
You saw Mr. Rosenbaum. What happened?
Once I got to that car and I stepped forward to put that fire in the Duramax out, and Mr. Zeminski stepped towards me, I went to go run back south down Sheridan, and Mr. Rosenbaum was right there at the corner of the Duramax starting to chase me. And that's when I realized the only place I can run with the people around me is straight towards the building of the car source lot number 3.
When you saw Mr. Rosenbaum, that's when you said friendly?
When I heard burn inside, I don't know exactly where I was at in the time for that.
Did Mr. Rosenbaum say anything to you?
No, Mr. Zeminski instructed Mr. Rosenbaum to get him and kill him. That's what I heard.
And
see, that's a new fact, big time new fact.
The southwest corner of car source?
Yes.
And as you're running in that direction, describe being chased. What was happening?
As I'm running in that southwest direction, Mr. Rosenbaum throws, at the time, I know it's a bag now, but when he threw it at me, with the light, it looked silver and it looked like the chain when he threw it at me. And then I continue, I turn around for about a second while continuing to run, and I point my gun at Mr. Rosenbaum.
Does that stop him from chasing you?
It does not.
Okay. After you turn around and you had your hands up kind of in a low ready position,
Yes.
and you see Mr. Rosenbaum coming at you,
Yes.
and what do you do then?
After he throws the bag and he continues to run, he's gaining speed on me. A gunshot is fired from behind me, directly behind me, and I take a few steps, and that's when I turn around. And as I'm turning around, Mr. Rosenbaum is, I would say, from me to where the judge is, coming at me with his arms out in front of him. I remember his hand on the barrel of my gun.
And why didn't you just keep running?
When I was over there, there were about 100 people surrounding those cars, and there was no space for me to continue to run to.
And so you turned around,
Yes,
and as you see him lunging at you, what do you do?
I shoot him.
And how many times did you shoot?
I believe 4.
And after you shot him, what did you do?
The people around the cars that were originally there were not there anymore. They moved away, and I ran around to see if I could help Mr. Rosenbaum.
And when you got to Mr. Rosenbaum, what was happening?
Mr. McGinnis he took off his helmet and slammed it on the ground and took off his shirt, and I don't remember what he said. I wasn't focused on that. I was in shock, sort of.
Let me back up a second. Did you know Mr. McGinnis was even around?
I didn't.
Okay. And he says something to you, and what do you do?
I pull out my phone and I call Dominick Black.
And you call Dominick, and what do you say?
I told him I just shot somebody. I had to shoot him.
And what do you do then?
I now know it to be Kelly Zeminski, Joshua Zeminski, and I don't know the other people were screaming, "Get his ass, get his ass, get him, get him, get him."
And based upon that, did you feel as though you were safe to stay where you were at?
I thought the safest option would be to go north down Sheridan to turn myself into the law enforcement down there.
And as you head down Sheridan Road, describe what's going on.
As I'm running, at first I'm in the sidewalk, and Mr. Lukowski, Jason Lukowski, is in the sidewalk, and I stop to talk to Mr. Lukowski for a brief second. I remember telling him that I just shot somebody and I need help to get to the police because the crowd, there was a mob was chasing me.
And did Mr. Lukowski offer you any help?
I don't remember.
Okay, what do you do then?
I continued to run after hearing people were saying, cranium him, get him, kill him. People were screaming, and I just was trying to get to the police running down Sheridan Road.
And you say, I'm trying to get to the police. Why were you trying to get to the police?
So I didn't do anything wrong. I defended myself.
Did you feel as though there was safety where the police were?
Yes.
And as you head down Sheridan Road, what's the next thing you remember?
The next thing I remember is Anthony Huber striking me in the head with a skateboard.
Okay. As you sit here today, do you remember talking to Gage Grosskreutz?
Yeah, sorta, a little bit. I didn't know it was Gage Grosskreutz when he came up to me, but sorta.
Okay. And when this individual runs up to you and gets how close?
I would say within a foot.
Did you shoot him?
I did not.
Did you point your gun at him?
I did not.
Why not?
I didn't see him as a threat to my safety or life.
Okay. Was he armed at that time?
Not that I noticed.
Okay. And you continue running in a northerly direction down Sheridan Road?
Correct.
And as you're running in that direction, you said the next thing you remember is Anthony Huber.
Yes.
Describe that.
Anthony Huber, what I remember is running past Anthony Huber, and as I'm running past Mr. Huber, He's holding a skateboard like a baseball bat, and he swings it down, and I block it with my arm, trying to prevent it from hitting me, but it still hits me in the neck. And as I block it, it goes flying somewhere off in the distance.
And do you stop then?
No.
What do you do next?
I keep running down Sheridan Road towards the police line.
Then what happens?
I get lightheaded. I almost pass out, and I stumble and hit the ground.
Okay. Before you hit the ground, how many times were you struck?
I believe twice.
Okay. Do you remember anything about the other one?
I remember the first one being a rock. I don't remember who did it, but I remember like the bumpiness of like a concrete rock hitting me in the back of the head.
Okay. Now, after being struck with Mr. Huber's skateboard, you end up on the ground.
Yes.
You're on the ground. What's the first thing you remember?
As I'm on the ground, there are people around me. I don't recall how many, but I remember moving my rifle in their direction, and they back off besides one person.
Okay. When you noticed people by you, you said you moved your rifle in their direction.
Yes.
Did that individual keep coming?
The last person did.
Okay. The people that stopped, what did you do to them?
Nothing.
Okay. And you're saying the last person in that group continued to come at you?
Yes.
And describe what happened.
The last person, I don't know his name. I don't think he was ever identified. Jumps at me he was wearing boots, I believe. And as he's running at me and jumping, as his boot is making contact with my face, I fired 2 shots at him.
Why did you shoot at him?
I thought if I were to be knocked out, or he would have stomped my face in if I didn't fire.
As a result of being kicked in the face, what happens?
Mr. Huber, immediately after I'm kicked in the face, runs up as I'm sitting up to try to get up and get to the police. I'm on my back, and Mr. Huber runs up. As I'm getting up, he strikes me in the neck with his skateboard a second time.
Then what happens?
He grabs my gun, and I can feel it pulling away from me, and I can feel the strap starting to come off my body.
And what do you do then?
I fire 1 shot.
And after you fire, striking, we now know Mr. Huber, what do you do?
I lower my weapon, and I see Mr. Grosskreutz with his hands up, and as I'm lowering my weapon, I look down, and then Mr. Grosskreutz, he lunges at me with his pistol pointed directly at my head.
Now, you heard Mr. Grosskreuz's testimony about re-racking.
Yes.
Did you re-rack your weapon?
I did not.
No.
Oh,
This
wow.
was the only
Is this
thing that
about to
happened.
No.
Am I really watching this? Is this really happening?
But
Keep
wait a
that
minute,
gun-
though. If you're saying that, Nate, was it you who said that they were going to put the gun in his hand?
No,
Unless
No,
they
that was
show
uncivil.
I
re-racking.
said the prosecution was going to do it, not the defense.
No. Right. My point is,
Well,
if
the
we
defense
all
has to
agree
get
that
it
the
out.
prosecution is going to do it, why not take the sting out of it
Maybe, yeah.
by having the plaintiff do it first?
Oh,
He
Lord.
might be
I
doing
mean, having
it
the
to
defense do
show
it first.
he might be doing it to show the process of
Re-rack.
re-racking.
Usually marked Exhibit 28. You recognize
They could have called a firearms expert to
No.
show that and then say
Yeah.
we didn't see it in the photo.
As Mr. Grosskreutz said, re-rack.
What you don't need is a jury to see him with the gun in his hands, but they already saw it on video too.
Yes.
It's not like it's a big secret that he
I
had
know
a
it's
gun.
not.
Charging,
Yeah, but-
putting a live round into the chamber.
And to recharge, you have to pull this all the way back.
Yes.
Say that's about 4 inches. No, I'm asking you if you agree with that approximation. Mr. Rittenhouse, how far do you think that is?
3-4 inches.
And if the weapon is loaded
Okay.
and you re-rack, what happens?
If there is already a round in the chamber, when you re-rack the rifle, a live round would come out chambering a new round into the chamber.
Now, we got to the point where Mr. Groskowitz is standing in front of you.
They put it down.
Correct.
They showed the jury the process,
Are
and then
you
they
aware
put
that
it
he-
down. Okay.
At that point, I do see a pistol in his hand.
Is that the same or different from your first encounter with Mr. Groskowitz?
That is different.
And he is standing, you said?
They going to do a demonstrative with this?
What I remember is our feet. were
Position
touching.
Richards
It
as
was like-
Grosskreutz?
And you do what?
My rifle is down. His hands are up. His pistol is in his hand. And then Mr. Grosskreutz looks at me. And that's when Mr. Grosskreutz brings his arm down like this. Like his arm is like that with me on the ground, and his pistol is pointed at me, and that's when I shoot him
How many times did you shoot him?
once.
And after you shoot Mr. Groskowitz, do you know where you shot him?
No.
What happens after you shoot him?
He's no longer a threat to me. There's only one person in front of me, and his hands are up. I briefly point my rifle at him, and I get onto one knee, getting up, and he backs up with his hands up, and I don't shoot him.
Did you notice anybody to your side?
To my left, there was a gentleman with a pipe. And to my right, I believe it was a fence post. I don't know what it was, but it was a large object.
He has real good trigger discipline. I will say that.
What do you do?
I start walking towards the police line to turn myself into the police.
Describe, where is the police line? Is it still in the same place?
It moved up a little bit. I was down in the road about approximately right here. I'd say over here somewhere in this area. I don't remember exactly, but the police line was right here. I could see the flashing lights as I was trying to get to the police before.
Okay. And as you go towards the police line, describe what happens.
I run and walk. I put my hands up, and as I'm walking towards the police, I can't really hear anything. My vision is very narrow. I can only see directly in front of me. I see the flashing lights. I remember I occasionally tried to move my rifle behind me to put it behind me so the police didn't see me as a threat when I tried to turn myself in. I continue to walk, and then I walk towards the window of the sedan, the police cruiser sedan. I don't know what they're called. And I tell the officer, I just shot somebody. And the officer says, get the fuck back or you're going to get pepper sprayed. Go home, go home, go home.
And then pepper sprayed him.
And where do you go after you step back from the police car?
I go to car source number 2.
Okay. And now there wasn't a line there. They weren't stopping people from going in a northerly direction.
No, they weren't.
And you go to car source, what we refer to as car source number 2. And who do you see?
I get there and I think the first person I see is Joanne Fiedler. I don't remember exactly, but I believe that's who's outside at the door. They let me inside. The door was locked, so somebody had to get the key to unlock it. And then we go inside, and I'm in shock. I don't really remember what was happening in there. I was freaking out. I was just attacked. My head was spinning.
And did you go and turn yourself into the Kenosha Police Department?
I did not.
Why not?
The Kenosha Police Department was barricaded off with a fence, and I don't think they were accepting anybody to come to the police department at that time.
What did you do then?
I went to the nearest police department that I knew of, which was Antioch Police Department in Illinois by my house.
Who took you there?
My mother.
Okay. How did you get to Antioch from downtown Kenosha?
Dominick Black drove me.
Okay. And then Dominick Black drives you where?
He drives me to my house in Antioch, Illinois, where I meet with my mother and sisters, and I tell them what happened. I sort of tell them what happened. I was still in shock. My head was still spinning, and then we go to the Antioch Police Department where I turn myself in.
Who drove her to the Antioch Police Department?
My mother.
And did anybody else go there with you?
Not at first.
Okay. And you get to the Antioch Police Department approximately what time?
I would say about an hour after the shooting.
And when you get there, are they looking for you?
No,
Did you have to explain to somebody?
I had to tell them that I was just involved in a shooting in Kenosha and I needed Kenosha detectives.
Okay. Did they take you into custody immediately?
No,
What did they do?
they had me sit in the lobby of the police department.
Were you handcuffed to a chair?
I was not.
Did you stay there?
For about, I couldn't give you the exact time, but until Detective Howard and Detective Antaranio showed up.
And were you having any physical discomfort as you waited there?
I was vomiting and having panic attacks, and my head was spinning, and I couldn't think clearly at that point.
Did he ever get diagnosed with a concussion? Do
Yeah,
we
so I was
know?
gonna say vomiting might be head trauma.
Yeah.
Did he go to the hospital?
I wonder if they'll bring that up.
This
boy.
is the show, people. This is
Here's
the show.
here's the real, yeah.
Forget about everything you just heard on direct, because that's going to be like a distant memory after this.
Well, let's just
I-
see the demeanor
Dave-
of Binger.
Yeah.
I
we've
hope they
gotta
call
see the
Fatlock.
demeanor.
Bring Fatlock up to do it, Binger. Don't you do
No.
it. Give it to Kraus.
No, this is
No,
Binger's show right now.
This has to be Binger, and
He
he,
wants
has
the
Big
to
dog
be
right
careful.
now.
Elliot
This is
Smith
not-
says, enter the Fatlock 2 diabetic boogaloo.
This is not someone the jury hates at this point. They've got to read the room correctly.
Right.
Yeah.
They haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
No,
Kyle
they haven't.
did. Kyle did about the best job you could
Morning,
ask.
Morning.
Now it's up to Binger
Yeah,
to
Everybody that you shot
win or
at
lose.
that night, you intended to kill, correct?
I didn't intend to kill them. I intended to stop the people who were attacking me.
By killing them.
I did what I had to do to stop the person who was attacking me.
By killing them.
2 of them passed away, but I stopped the threat from attacking me.
By using deadly force
I used deadly
Oh,
that
Yeah,
you knew was
I
going
heard you the first 3 times.
I didn't know if it was going to kill them, but I used deadly force to stop the threat that was attacking me.
Good.
You intentionally used deadly force against Joseph Rosenbaum, correct?
Yes,
You intentionally used deadly force against the man who came and tried to kick you in the face,
yes,
correct? You intentionally used deadly force against Anthony Huber, correct?
Yes,
You intentionally used deadly force against Gage Grosskreutz, correct?
yes,
Did Binger
With
just spill
regard
his
to
reckless
Joseph Rosenbaum,
homicide
You
charge?
fired 4 shots at him, correct?
yes.
You intended to kill him, correct?
I didn't intend to kill him. I intended to stop the person who was attacking me and trying
Good.
to steal my gun.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think
Nice,
Not lulled
nice.
into submission.
Since August 25th, 2020, this is the first time that you have told your story.
Yeah, object, absolutely
yeah.
object.
Sustained.
He's a Fifth Amendment right.
Since August 25th, 2020, you've had the benefit of watching countless videos of your actions that night, correct?
I've seen certain
benefits.
videos, not all of them. I've seen the majority of them actually here during the trial.
This is
You've
true.
also had the
Fair.
opportunity to read articles. People have written interviews, things like that about what happened that night, correct?
I do my best to avoid what people write on the internet. A majority of it is not true.
The 8-day trial, correct?
Yes,
And you've had the opportunity to watch
Wow.
all of the videos that have been
yes,
played in this trial.
yes.
Sir, if you could please let me finish my question.
Oh,
Stop,
here we
Binger.
go.
Stop being.
I
Why are
will
you
do
being
my
a
best
dick?
To let you finish your answer before I go on to the next question. Fair?
He's
He wants to make sure the
answering
jury
fairly
doesn't
fast.
forget what a jerk
He's
he is.
You've
answering-
also had the
but he's
opportunity
answering fast
to
for the court
listen
reporter.
to the testimony of all
To be
30
But
some
there is
witnesses
a
that have
smoother
testified
way
in the
to
trial so far,
ask
correct?
him to slow down.
Yes,
Yes,
And
there
after
is.
all of that, now you are telling us your side of the story, correct?
correct.
That's objectionable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Who's going to talk about the case?
Binger
Yeah,
might
he's gonna
just
pull
be
the
a fucking
prosecutor
idiot.
up. Binger's gonna get
Bring him.
roasted.
Yeah, he's about to
Binger's
get.
going
He's
to
about to
get
get mad.
roasted.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's gonna
God.
whack him over
I've
the
seen
head a
this
little
He's
bit.
gonna get
before.
roasted.
This is
This
it's
not
gonna be
good.
good.
He
This
is
is
Not
going.
good.
This is not
You
good.
cannot.
Shh, okay. Well, let's listen
Sorry.
Yeah,
in.
Binger's about to
We're all
get
just
screwed.
so
Not
excited.
Well,
like
the
your
jury's
main
walking
sound
out. The
scared
The
you.
jury's walking out.
Yeah, I know.
They're not
The-
talking.
Yeah,
The
the
jury's
judge
walking out.
dismissed
jury
the
will-
jury.
will spot the
Good.
black
The reason why the
eyes,
judge is
and they
dismissing a
collect
jury
the
because
record.
this is so bad. That's why.
Because he's
The
gonna
reason
be
why-
on
Binger
there.
knows he just did
Yeah.
something bad. He had a sheepish look to the side.
And the
Because he
jury
got objected to the first
knows.
time, and then he went again to say, "This is the first time you've talked." He has a right to remain silent. Don't be a
Exactly.
scummy prosecutor. What the fuck are you doing?
He's pissed.
Be better. I'm pissed.
Okay, hold.
Yeah. Binger might
You need
figure
to account for this.
mistrial is not so bad from Binger's
Your Honor.
perspective.
I don't want
Oh no, it's over.
Yeah, no, put
Jeopardy's
it on the
attached.
mic.
Hold on,
Get
hold
on
on.
the mic.
commenting on my client's right to remain silent.
Yep.
Your Honor,
Yep.
I'm making the point that after hearing everything
never
in the
spoken.
case, now he's tailoring his story to what has already been introduced.
The problem,
to the evidence.
this is a grave constitutional violation
Yes.
for you to talk about the defendant's
Judge is pissed.
silence.
Be sanctioned.
And that is, and you're right. You're right on the borderline.
A grave
Ooh.
constitutional
Oh,
violation.
come on.
You may be over, but it better
Yeah.
stop.
Yes, you may
Well
be
over it.
This is,
appalling.
I can't
Yeah.
think of the case, the initial case.
It's crazy.
This is not permitted.
No
All right.
shit.
been
Let the
sanctioned.
jury come in, please.
Grave
Wow. That was
constitutional
Wow.
violation.
Right. That
I
was
wonder
He
if,
said- he said
I wonder if
it
he's
may have
gonna
been-
hold on. I wonder if he's going to comment to the jury to say that you know that this has something to do with his
He's
Fifth
not
Amendment
gonna
rights.
say
I don't
it.
know
Mhm.
He,
because he may be so pissed that he wants to rehabilitate
might
Kyle
remi-
a little bit
he
in
might
that.
remind the jury about his Fifth Amendment right, but he's not
Right,
going to say
he
anything
should.
bad
Exactly.
about. He's not going to say anything bad about Binger though.
He
There's no reason.
might. He
Mhm.
might.
Well, but his
He
his
said
tone
you
will.
might be. He said you might be over the line on a constitutional violation. Like that's you might have just earned a mistrial, is what he just said.
Alita's
don't-
right, though. I think the tone will tell the jury if he reminds the jury the defendant has a right to not testify and
Yes.
to not, the defendant has a right to not speak.
Well, that's different from saying
Yeah,
that
so-
Binger's violated the Constitution.
They're not
To
gonna do
the-
But his tone while talking about while reminding them of their Fifth Amendment constitutional right, I mean, that's going to be they're going to say like, oh, he got really pissed at the prosecutor. He really stepped over the line.
He
Yeah,
got
to-
pissed. He took the jury out of the room, and then he's probably going to admonish them. It'll read
Mhm.
for itself.
Yeah.
Hi, good logic.
Hey.
to the chat who maybe doesn't if they don't know what's going on, what just happened there was Binger is stepping. Oh, never mind.
You were armed with an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle that evening, correct?
Yes.
You had it loaded with 30 rounds of
He didn't
full
say anything to
metal
the jury
jacket
at all.
ammunition, correct?
Yes.
That weapon with 30 rounds is capable of killing at least 30 people, correct?
Yes.
You had arranged to have Dominick Black
So is a car.
purchase that weapon for you in Ladysmith, Wisconsin in early May of 2020. Is that correct?
We were up north shooting and not shooting. We were up north going camping, and Dominick Black brought his rifle, and we were talking. I was like, "Hey, what if we get a rifle for me? I'll give you the money. You can purchase it. It's yours until I'm 18." So I bought the rifle for Dominick, and I can use it. But once I'm 18, we can do a private sale, and we can have it turned over to my name once I turned 18.
Because you knew as a 17-year-old, you could not have that gun.
You
correct?
can't buy
I
it.
knew I could not buy that gun.
Nailed it.
So you could possess
Yep.
the gun also, correct?
No.
You weren't aware that under Wisconsin law,
I'm going to instruct the jury later about the law.
Yes.
That-
Yep.
Thank
Dom,
you.
he-
There you go.
he's talking down to him in a very rude way.
So,
The judge is pissed at this
it was
prosecutor.
unlawful for him to purchase the gun.
And the judge is also
It was
looking
unlawful for you to
like
purchase
he's
it. It
looking
was
for
unlawful
opportunities to
for
step
you
in where
to
he needs to.
Hold
right?
on. Hold on.
In Illinois, I wasn't able to bring it home because I didn't have a FOID card, a firearm owner identification card.
You
in
knew
Illinois.
you knew in Illinois that you couldn't get that until you turned 18, correct?
No, you can get a FOID card at 16 in Illinois.
But you didn't have one.
I did not.
And even after this gun was purchased for you in May, you never got one after that either, did you?
Actually, I applied for a FOID card in May of 2020, but due to the charges, and there was a backlog in Illinois because for the FOID card. But after you filed the charges against me, it was denied because of the charges here in this state.
You found out about that after you were criminally charged in this case?
I found out about this in November of 2020. A letter was sent to my old residence.
So you knew that without that FOID card, the gun could not go back to your residence in Illinois, correct?
Correct.
And you agreed that the gun would be kept at Dominick Black's stepfather's house here in Kenosha, correct?
Because he had a safe, yes.
And you agreed that you wouldn't have access to that gun, correct?
We agreed that the only time I would use the gun is when I was with him and we would go to like the Bristol shooting range or up north to his land.
But the only time prior to the night of August 25th, 2020, that you ever used that gun was up in Ladysmith, correct?
Correct.
So you didn't go to the Bristol shooting range ever?
I did. Not with that rifle, but I did.
Pay attention to my question, please. You didn't ever go
Rude.
to the Bristol shooting range with that
Bad
gun,
approach.
correct?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you picked out that gun because Dominick had one, correct?
Yeah.
You could have, if you wanted to, chosen from any number of guns that were for sale. Fair enough?
That were at that store. There weren't many, but yes.
I'm sure the store in Ladysmith isn't the only store that sells guns, correct?
Oh, really? Are you under oath?
No, it was a statement.
That was a
Yep.
statement.
Isn't it correct, Mr. Rittenhouse, that there are other
Don't smile,
places
Kyle.
to purchase guns besides that one store?
Binger has weird smirks at
I
odd times.
believe so, but that's where we're at, so that's where we got the gun.
And you, if you wanted to, could have given Dominick Black money to purchase a gun at other locations. Fair?
Didn't cross my mind, but now that you say it, yeah.
What a trivial
Why
line of
did
question.
you pick
Yeah, who cares?
or want Dominick Black to buy for you an AR-15 as opposed to a pistol?
Because
or
they're cool, you
shotgun or
pussy.
some other
Objection.
gun?
Pistol
asked and
raises
answered.
its own set of
You said
I
problems.
cannot legally possess or carry a pistol because I'm
There you
not
go.
18 in Wisconsin. I believe it's 18 in Wisconsin for a pistol.
He knows the law better than the prosecutor.
He really does.
With the rifle, I knew I could possess that rifle. I knew I couldn't buy it, but I knew I could like take it to like the shooting range or possess it. And with shotguns, they didn't have any shotguns in stock. That was my original plan, to get a shotgun for trap shooting, but there weren't any at that Ladysmith store, and I didn't want to go to Walmart and buy one.
Binger has been better for the
Understanding
defense
at that
than the
time
defense.
was that Wisconsin
They sell
law
guns at
prohibited
Walmart?
You as a 17-year-old
Some places.
Yeah, they do.
possessing a pistol, but you could have an AR-15?
Yes.
That's
You're
the law.
arguing with the
What was
law?
that?
What's understanding based on?
The understanding was
Who
based
cares?
on,
It's the same law in Canada.
Go up north.
It's a long
we
gun
were-
versus a
It
short
was
gun.
me, Dominic, and my sister, and we
And he's
were
not
allowed
wrong.
to carry the rifles around. And the officers over there said it was fine.
I'm going to move to strike as hearsay.
No, you asked the question.
You asked him the basis of his knowledge.
You asked how he knew.
Well, that's
Nice.
what I heard. That's
what the
Also, he's not testifying. You're right, he's not testifying.
None of this
That's
is
why I
admissible.
interrupted.
Also, it's not
Hold on,
hearsay
hold on,
because
hold on,
it's
hold
not.
on.
What the defendant believes the law to be, what the district attorney believes the law to be, what the defense believes the law to be, are irrelevant. I will tell
Completely.
you when I instruct you what the law of Wisconsin is pertaining to the possession of a firearm by a person under 18, and that'll be the source of your knowledge. I'm allowing the testimony right now because it bears on
His statement.
there's an old maxim under the law of ignorantia juris non excusat. Ignorance of the
I love this,
of the
Judge.
law is not an excuse. Ignorance of the criminal law is not an excuse. If you commit a criminal act, whether you knew it was criminal or not, you're responsible for your conduct, and because you're responsible to know the law. It's not relevant, except in this case, there are specific issues about his awareness and knowledge about certain conduct that is relevant on some issues. So it's quite complicated. Hopefully it'll sort out when I instruct you at the end. But that's why I'm allowing the questions and the answers. But do not be confused about anything that these people say is not necessarily accurate as to the state of Wisconsin law. Any question about that?
I like this, Judge.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
I do too.
So you're telling us that
Not
the
bad.
reason that you wanted Dominick
He's certainly
to an
patient.
AR-15 as opposed to a pistol is the only reason was because you felt you couldn't lawfully possess a pistol?
Correct.
You didn't pick out the AR-15 for any other reason?
I thought it looked cool, but no.
You didn't pick it
And
out
it does.
because you wanted to go hunting with it, did you?
No.
You didn't pick it out because you were
He
going to
wanted to trap shoot.
use it to press.
That's on relevance
Right.
here. What's the
Right.
relevance of this?
You picked it out because it looked cool.
I thought it looked cool. Guess
You-
that's the reason, yes.
It resembled the types of weapons that are used in first-person shooter video games, correct?
Call of Duty.
What?
Objection, relevance.
Relevance.
I play first-person shooter video games. I have, but I believe there's a variety of guns, including
Fair.
shotguns.
True.
Yeah, very fair.
Guns in video games that resemble all guns.
Isn't it
Yeah.
true when
Also
you
melee
would hang out
weapons,
with
Molotov
Dominick
cocktails.
Black, you'd play Call of Duty and other first-person shooter video games?
This is not a good line of
This is-
questioning.
this
And
is
those are
terrible.
games in which you use weapons like AR.
He's reinforcing the fact that he's a kid.
Pretty much shoot.
The video games made you do it.
No. Yes, he's going to try to say he was living a
The
real life video game
where two
out there.
players are
I think he was trying to reenact PUBG on the street.
Well, let's hear his answer, please, guys.
understand the
Yeah.
meaning of your question, to be honest.
Isn't one of the things people do in these video games try and kill everyone else with your guns?
No.
Yeah, in the video game, it's just a video game. It's not real life.
Now, you introduced yourself as living in Walworth County right now. Is that
Yes.
right?
Right now.
On the date that this all happened, you were an Illinois resident.
Correct.
You had grown up in Illinois.
Correct.
You had not spent any significant time living here in Wisconsin, correct?
No.
You'd agree with me that's correct.
No, I spent time at my father's house and partially live here also, so no, that's not correct.
You indicated you had attended, was it Penn Foster High School?
Yes.
That's an online high school?
Correct.
So you were not attending high school in person.
No.
And at the time that all of the things in this case were happening, from the time the AR-15 was purchased to the night of August 25th, you were 17 years old that entire time, correct?
Correct.
Could we have exhibit number 7 up, please?
I don't like that they tried to go the video game route of he was taking to the streets to play Call of Duty.
No,
I don't
because
think it
in
looks
Call of
good for
Duty,
them.
in Call of Duty, you go treat the injured in the game. That's the other part of what Kyle was doing that night, which is annihilates any shooting game theory.
There
his
aren't any
response was great.
5'4" manlets in Call of Duty screaming at you either.
But his
I don't think
response
you
was great.
clean
He was
graffiti
like,
either.
It's a video game. It's a video. It's not real life.
It's not real life.
That was a great answer. He didn't
Well,
just say
I don't.
yes.
I think everyone knows that when he says it's a video game.
Well, of course, but that's a good answer.
Yeah, Kyle did a great job distinguishing that he doesn't get lost in virtual reality and confusion.
Exactly.
Exhibit number
It's a cheap
7
shot. It's a
up
cheap
on the
shot, but
screen.
this is
You
what he's.
recognize
This is
that?
what he's got.
Yes, that's
Oh,
my
here we go.
old TikTok account.
That was a TikTok account that you had during the summer.
Four
of
doors, more whores.
Wait, a 17-year-old's offensive on
Yes.
the internet with bad
And
jokes?
it says your name
Weird.
on there, Kyle.
Yes.
Your
It's the tagline.
username on TikTok was 4 doors, more whores.
Yes.
Good times.
And that's a picture of you there with your AR-15, correct?
Yes.
And underneath that, you have put on your profile the phrase bruh, B-R-U-H, I'm just trying, T-R-Y-N-A, be famous. Is
Trying
that
to-
correct?
Yes.
You're the one who wrote that.
Yes.
Famous versus infamous.
You
is a very important
testified
distinction.
that at some point you were involved in some sort of EMT cadet program.
I was a firefighter EMT cadet at Antioch Fire Department.
When was that?
I was a cadet at the Antioch Fire Department. I believe from 2018 or 2019 up until the incident of August 25th.
An EMT cadet is someone who's just beginning the process of eventually achieving full EMT certification. Is that correct?
No.
Were you studying to be an EMT before August 25th, 2020?
I was learning about certain things in the field of firefighting and EMS.
But
He was
that's
also a
not
lifeguard.
actually formal classes, is it?
No, we met once a week, and we would either, depending on the day, we would either do EMT stuff like learning how to do airways, or we do firefighter stuff like doing hose drags and learning how to crawl through buildings.
And these are things that you did with the, which firefighter? Antioch Fire?
Antioch Fire Department.
You weren't a member of the fire department, were you?
I was.
You were a actual on-duty member on the roster of the Antioch Fire Department?
No.
So when you say you're a member, what do you mean?
I was a member of the Antioch Fire Cadet program. We were issued shirts, Antioch Fire Cadet member. We would help with the pancake breakfast at the VFWs, and we would wear Antioch Fire Department staff shirts. I still have one in my closet.
Maybe I didn't express myself clearly. You were
You didn't,
not
He's
Ginger.
lost.
Accurate.
He's completely.
fire department,
I
correct?
was kicking his butt.